was informed by the good man at the railroad station that you ran a stage. I'm merely asking. Stage hasn't run out of here for over 6 months, mister. Too much nonsense in the territories. If you're aiming to head for Laramie, my suggestion is to buy a horse. And where might I do that? Round back. He jerked his thumb towards the rear of the building. There's a livery stable there. They'll give you a good offer for a horse and rig. Also, where you're going, you'll need firearms. Sims nodded, unbuttoned his coat, and pushed it away to reveal the pistols already holstered around his person. Buster Norwich, or so Sims assumed the man to be, studied the guns, smirked, then turned his head, hawked, and spat on the floor. Damned bounty hunters. Your business in Laramie got something to do with taking a few scalps, trading off some innocents for desperados? Jesus, you make me sick. He reached under the counter and brought up a shotgun, barrels sawn off. But if he had a desire to use the weapon, or merely to intimidate, he did not get very far. Before he could bring the impressive firearm to bear, Sims pulled out the Colt Dragoon at his hip and rapped the barrel hard across the big man's nose, sending him screaming and squirming to the ground, collapsing into the well-stocked shelves behind him. The suddenness and weight of his fall brought down a profusion of cans, bottles, and paper bags filled with an assortment of flour and maize around his head. Sims holstered his revolver, returned to the rifle rack, and lifted out the carbine he'd been looking at. Recognizing it from his war days, Sims hefted the weapon in his hands, an 1843 model, Hall's breech-loading carbine, a fine gun. Grinning, he vaulted the counter and scraped around, searching for cartridges. He found a small carton only half full of ready-made paper cartridges and dropped them into his pocket. He kicked the shotgun away well out of reach, stomped his foot into the writhing man's groin for good measure, and went through the beaded curtain, carbine in hand. The rear door yawned wide open. Beyond it, Sims could just make out a battered old barn, surrounded on 2 sides by makeshift fence. A broken cart lay next to the entrance. He did not step closer, so the angle from which he looked obscured most of the details, but he could see enough to realize this was no livery stable. A miserable attempt to waylay him, perhaps, with Norwich's associates standing just out of sight, waiting. He turned and went back into the shop. He stooped down beside Norwich and put the end of the barrel under the squirming man's chin. "You aiming to kill me, boy?" he asked through gritted teeth. Norwich, eyes cloudy with tears, blabbed, shaking his head. "Please," was all he managed. "How did you know I was coming?" To lend some weight to the question, he pushed the barrel deeper into Norwich's thick throat. He gagged. "Seamus." "And who is he?" "We have a deal. He sends tenderfoots over here to ask about the stage." Sobs broke out from his slack mouth, the tears tumbling down his face. "Don't kill me, please." "The guy at the railroad station?" Sims stood up. "Jesus, you people. How many of you waylaid this way?" Norwich, unable to answer, curled himself up into a ball, bleating like a lamb. "Too damned many, that's for sure." Sims scooped up the shotgun, broke it open, and dropped the cartridges to the floor. He then took to smashing the gun on the counter edge before tossing the ruined weapon into the far corner. "How many are waiting for me out back?" Norwich dragged in a shuddering breath. "Only one. Johnny boy, a kid. Don't hurt him." Sims narrowed his eyes. "One. That means there are at least 2, and they ain't no kids." "What you gonna do?" "Get myself a horse." He moved quick, running out of the store, back into the sunlight. Main Street remained as quiet as ever, which might be a problem, but Sims was sufficiently experienced in this sort of thing to know that as soon as the gunfire broke out, people would keep their heads down. So he continued to run, taking the passageway which ran down the side of the store and stopped at the corner. He listened. A couple of horses neighed, kicking at the ground, but nothing else. He estimated the distance between where he stood and the rear entrance of the store. Perhaps 15 paces, maybe less. He checked the carbine, brought it up to his eye line, and stepped around the corner.